call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Trish.
Mrs. Brew?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Mr. Marraro?
Here.
Mr. Pop?
Here. Move on to the approval of the agenda. I have a motion on the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Marraro?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. Move on to the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of July 6, 2020, closed session of July 6, 2020. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the regular meeting of July 6, 2020.
Support.
I make a motion that we approve the closed session of July 6, 2020.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes, yes.
Mr. Marraro?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
And
Move on
then,
to the approval of the manifest 2020-14. Scott, do you have any questions?
Just some comments. I don't know much about the technology stuff, but it seems like every month we have this upgrade, maintenance and maintenance. I do realize we have a lot, but it seems like 4,000, at least minimum 4,000 every month. I got a question though, so the software that we had last year from Empower for our daily timesheets, are we paying for upgrades that we haven't used it yet?
Well, we've been using it, but there's the service agreements. The first part is the software itself, and then we have the annual maintenance agreements.
Are we 100% everybody's up and running?
Not everybody's up and running on it, so.
Okay, I'd like to see that get going.
Well, if I could just add one thing. In a month, I'm having Empower come in, just like we're having Mr. Gottstein today. And that was one of the things I wanted him to explain,
Okay.
so.
I question on this, the energy control, the protection maintenance agreement. What's this about? For the building and grounds, the last one, for $1,100.
Well, that's what we approved for their annual, that's half of their annual maintenance for the city hall, to keep our certification.
Okay, that's all.
Brett?
I have nothing.
Jeff?
Yeah, I just want to echo Councilman Pop's statement about the Empower maintenance and admin fees. If we're not utilizing the system 100%, it's kind of disappointing. So I look forward, Mr. Anderson, to seeing from Mr. Brown as soon as possible. That's it.
Lee?
I have to agree with both the gentlemen, and I got one question here. Page 4, second from the bottom, maintenance, equipment and building, utility, sales and service, vehicle maintenance, $2,400. Is that rec? Second from the bottom.
For utility sales, I don't know, I don't have the equipment number on
Could you
here.
find out, because they don't have if it's a truck, they don't have a number here.
Okay.
That's all I have.
I also agree with Jeff, Scott, and Lee on maintenance upkeep. If we're not using these things, that's a waste of money. And then I had one other question. Let's see, page 5 of 8. Under the electric department, computer expense, electric laptop with docking station, $1,964.80. What did we need that for?
Well, this computer, we need to upgrade the computer. That was the oldest computer that we had. So it was time for an upgrade on, we go around all the departments and we pick the the worst computers and we upgrade them.
Which computer was it?
That was the one supervisor was using, or Tim was using that one previously.
So is the one in the office?
Yeah, it's the laptop that they had in the office.
Or is that
Or
the
the-
one, or is that the laptop they take home?
Well, it's a laptop, so that, like, right now, he's using that down in, Alabama, so he's actually plugging in the evening and working. So I've had communications with him, and he's checking in on things, so he's staying in touch.
We did that before,
We had it before.
but we never used it.
Well, this is, no, the computer he had before, it was ready for an upgrade.
So you couldn't just do an upgrade, we had to buy a new one? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Okay.
you gotta upgrade your computers. I mean, the one we had, I mean, he had one of the oldest computers in the city.
Was that budgeted?
Yes. These all computers across all departments are planned. When we get into the IT discussion, we can discuss that as well.
That's all I have. Do I have a motion on the manifest?
I'll make a motion to approve manifest number 2020-14 in the amount of $587,476.34.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yeah.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Moraro?
Yep.
Answers to previous manifest questions. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, we had, this is the one main issue that was brought up at the last meeting, and that was, again, continued on the water issue, and, you know, I had full discussion with the department on that, and we've corrected that issue.
That was it?
That was it from the last manifest.
All right. Anyone wishing to address the council on an agenda item only shall do so now at the podium. State your name and address for the records. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. We have no one. We have no public hearing. We'll move on to appointments and presentations. Appointments. Michigan Municipal League Workers' Compensation Fund.
So each year, we get a list of candidates from the MML for the Board of Trustees for the MML Workers' Comp Fund. This year, we have two candidates that were nominated, incumbent candidates. As always, you can write in candidates, but their recommendation is to approve the two that are presented.
Do you want us to move on that?
Yes, please.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion that the two candidates proposed by the MML's nominating committee be endorsed by the City of Norway City Council.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Moraro?
No.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Presentation IT Security Plan, FDS/GOTEC.
The agenda item is actually not quite accurate. We're going to discuss the security plan a little bit tonight, but there'll be another full presentation on that. So, Ray asked me to come in and just kind of talk about technology, the budget, the current invoice that you're being billed through GoTech for, the services that we provide. Just kind of go through what we've been doing, what you're getting charged for, and then kind of plans going forward. So, kind of want to start with a kind of brief overview. The little topic came up about IT spending and what you guys are spending per year on IT support services. One of the documents I gave you was kind of an overview of what the industry sees for IT spending. It has some nice graphs in it. It just kind of breaks down in percentages what IT spending is across different industries. So you can take a look at that. I used some of those numbers and what I've kind of put together here, but on average, in that document, they're stating that government spend typically 2.5% of revenue on IT. That does not include support, that was just IT services like software support, and hardware. If you look at all in, average IT budgets across the board for small businesses, enterprises, is about 3.5% of revenue. I saw some stats that say small businesses under 50 million typically spend 5.9% of their revenue on IT as well. So based on some of the numbers that you guys had thrown out, I think it was a couple meetings ago, with roughly 77,000 a year, is that what sound right, Craig?
Sounds about right.
I did that based on $12 million, puts you at 0.6% of your budget. So right now, as of this year, you're using 0.6% of your revenue. Industry standard is probably right around 2.5 to 3.5%. So we can break down some of that on the invoice here. If you look at the invoice, the one I gave you is actually the most current one. It came out today. So the one that was in your packet was from last month. Invoices come out on the 20th of every month. It is exactly the same except for one item that we added to it, and I'll get down to that. But I just want to go through this line by line. If you guys have questions, just feel free to interrupt me and ask. But the first line on here is managed services for the servers. This includes all the servers down in the basement. You have 11 of them. This includes all the maintenance on them we do, monitoring, antivirus, security software, any kind of on-site or remote support that we do on that. Same thing for the workstation service underneath that. We have 24 workstations currently that are being supported in the city. We have updated this number through the years, so as we add more computers to the network, especially what happened with COVID here, we added, I believe, 2 new laptops for people to take home. So that number got bumped up a little bit on that. That price has not changed since the last time, I think it went out for bid, which was about 3 years ago. So most of these prices, all these prices in here have stayed the same for the last 3 years. It's just the quantity of devices or licenses have gone up. That managed services for the workstations, that includes, again, antivirus software and security software for all the workstations in the city. That also includes our monitoring software and includes our labor, so both remote and on-site labor. And that's unlimited, so it doesn't matter what the issue is, how big or small it is. Anybody in the city can call and we'll take care of it for them. There's no limit on that support. Next line down is managed network services. This just basically is the ability for us to monitor all the network devices that we have in the city and maintain them with firmware and software upgrades. You have roughly 30 billable devices. So billable devices we consider a switch or a router or a firewall. Altogether, if I look at our monitoring stats and the amount of inventory that we monitor within the city, it's somewhere around the vicinity of about 150 different devices that we monitor throughout the city. We bill for those 30 key devices that are in there. The next line is the Datto monthly backup. That is your data backup both locally and in the cloud. So every hour between the time of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., we take a backup of every single server in the basement. That gets stored on a local device, and then every 4 hours, that data gets uploaded to the cloud. We store that data in the cloud for up to a year. The nice thing about this service is that if the building would ever disappear, or there was a major catastrophe and all the servers went down in the basement, we have the ability within 4 hours to spin up all those servers in the cloud, connect to a VPN, and have the city back up and running within 4 hours. So that's what that service is right there. That's based on the amount of data that we're storing locally in the basement. So if our data usage increases, and so far we've had enough leeway in this that we haven't had to, but if it would, that charge could potentially go up if there's more data that we have to store. Next line is keeper password management. This is actually something new that we started implementing. It's a password management program, mostly for the city manager. And I think Trish or Mary have it right now too, I'm not sure which one. But it allows them to securely store passwords for websites on the computer, generate random passwords, and then securely share passwords internally in the office so people aren't writing passwords down. The next two lines kind of go together. This is phishing and dark web ID scanning. This service is something new we added last year. This is part of some of the cybersecurity stuff that we're doing. This is monitoring the dark web, which is where bad things happen on the internet, for any email addresses, passwords, personal information that come from within the city, and alerts us to anything that pops up. The biggest thing is passwords, and making sure that we're monitoring passwords so that if they do get hacked, we know, and we can alert that person to change the password. And then the training and phishing for end users. This includes a yearly cybersecurity training where I come in and do a cybersecurity training for the staff. And then we do monthly phishing tests. And what that means is that we send an email randomly every month to all the employees that looks like a legitimate email. And if they take action on that email, then they have to take training to learn why that was a bad thing to do. And so it's ongoing training to keep people on their toes and making sure that they're doing the things that they need to be doing themselves to protect their computers. The next line is Microsoft Office 365. We are starting to roll out Office 365, just the application side of it, to the software side, to new users. This is mostly for the laptops that we brought in because this was a much more cost-effective option than buying the license outright. So this is where the change was from the monthly bill from June to July. This went from 2 licenses to 3 licenses. And the last one is the mobile device management, and we're starting now to manage those tablets. We started with the electric department tablets, making sure that they're secure and locked down. I believe we have, and Ray, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have a couple more tablets that we need to get onto that system as well. But we've been trying to take it slowly. We're also trying to finish our cybersecurity plan before we start implementing it. So that's the invoice, top to bottom. Do you guys have any questions on that part of it?
That's a monthly invoice?
Yes. Very thorough explanation. Thank you, Chris.
And just for reference, a lot of stat to kind of throw out there. Typically, again, average business spends about 15% of the IT budget on managed services. If I take out the software aspect of what's in there, you are right around like 10 to 11% of what you spend in your IT budget going to managed services. So you're getting below what that average would be. I'll talk a little bit about the cybersecurity and the cybersecurity plan that we are developing. We're actually in the final stages of that right now. I'm working with Jesse at FDS and with Ray, and we're finishing up the utility side of that plan, which is more dealing with some of the FERC regulations that we have on the hydro. And those same regulations that we're using for the hydro, we're going to deploy across all the utilities. There's just a lot of detail that has to go into this plan. We're down to the point of just figuring out, a lot has to do with physical security. So we have to address physical security in a cybersecurity plan because we give people access to buildings that have IT assets that could potentially be accessed. So that's where we are right now in the cybersecurity plan. The cybersecurity plan that deals with, say, our internal network here at the City Hall is for the most part done. Ray has reviewed that along with Jim Schaefer from the police department to make sure it meets his requirements. And so we're continuing to move forward on this plan. I'm hoping, I think we just discussed August 6th as a date to potentially bring that forward to you guys for review. Any questions on the also, part of that cybersecurity plan, there could be an ongoing discussion after that then of how best to implement the recommendations that we're putting into that cybersecurity plan. So we're laying out the plan in a framework that is industry-based, is used industry-wide, and there are several items in there that in order for us to actually meet the requirements of the plan, there has to be additional services implemented within the city. Those could range from free things that we do that just lock down computers to potentially some paid services to be able to meet some of these recommendations. And most of those have to do with threat detections. So it's not enough to say that we're going to block something from happening. We have to be able to detect when something might be happening, or when an attempt is made to try to do something within the city. And there's software that can be put in place to be able to do those kinds of things. So that will be coming back once you guys kind of approve that plan. Then we'll look at implementing that into the 21-22 budget going forward for that. A couple updates on ongoing projects right now. Candy had mentioned the laptop in the electric department. That replaced the computer that I believe was going on 8 years old. I honestly don't know how it was even being used for the last 2 years. It was almost unusable. It is actually still running, but because Scott is out of town, he took the laptop with him. They're still using that computer in the office while he's gone. But as soon as he's back, that computer is going in the dumpster. It needed to be replaced pretty badly. And that we do that across the board, like Ray mentioned. Every year we look at what needs to be upgraded, and this was by far one of the ones out there. Camera projects, we have that slated for third week of August. That installation will be happening, so we'll be installing both compost site and Strawberry Lake that week. If by chance I have time to look at the softball field set up there, we might be able to get a quote in to you for approval to do that work as well. But like Ray mentioned in the last meeting, it's not a simple connection. I have to do a wireless link from the ice shack over to the softball field. We have to have power available. It has to be an outdoor box. We're looking at a couple grand to do that. So I'll put that together for you guys to look at. If it's something that works out and we can get it done at the same time, we will. If not, we can be done another time. As far as upcoming projects that were in the budget, the main one that I want to talk about is Office 365, because that is something that incurs a recurring monthly cost. Ray and I discussed moving to Office 365 for both the application side, so the Office apps like Microsoft Word, Excel, Outlook on the desktops, and also for actual email hosting as well. So currently, we are hosting email in the basement on an Exchange server. That server is almost end of life. We can, of course, upgrade it and spend the money to do that. Or we can move to Office 365, which is kind of the standard right now for email. I believe it's a better product because now it's hosted outside of the city. If there ever was, and it happens periodically, the internet goes down, the email does stay up. We can also implement some additional security, spam filtering that we can't necessarily do right now with the Exchange server that we have. On the application side, the city is running extremely old versions of Office. I believe most workstations are running Office 2010, which was end of life 2 years ago, and the rest are running Office 2013, which will be end of life at the end of this year, I believe. So they are very old applications. To upgrade each computer with a standalone license, those licenses typically run anywhere from $300 to $160 a piece. And we're talking about upgrading 20-some workstations.
Why don't you just go with the subscription service, Chris?
Say that again?
Why wouldn't you just go with the subscription service through Microsoft?
That's what I'm recommending. I would recommend that we go with the Office 365 service, which is the application on the desktop, the email hosted with Office 365, that also starts us to build the cloud infrastructure, meaning that we can start storing files in the cloud instead of on the server, so we can start reducing our usage, data usage on the server, which is important for the next discussion I have coming up about upgrading the server downstairs. So I believe there is a line item in the budget for Office 365. I'm not sure when that'll come forward, but that is something that I strongly believe that we should move forward with. Do you guys have any questions on that? Now, it isn't, again, it's a reoccurring monthly cost, so it's recurring every month for as long as we have that service.
There's just a comment. There's no reason to buy software anymore, because to your point, you buy software, you spend $300, $400 for a license, and it's obsolete, and even it's even getting obsolete faster and faster because of security issues and things like this. So I think it's a smart move to go to a subscription service.
Anybody else? And then, so speaking of the Office 365, I'm sure you guys have heard a lot of talk about cloud. Everything's going in the cloud. I believe there's a place for that. We will start moving things to the cloud as it makes sense, but there's a balance between monthly recurring costs and one-time software purchases or hardware purchases. I don't think we're at a point in the city right now that it makes sense to move everything to the cloud, but it definitely makes sense to start moving things in a hybrid fashion. Office 365 starts that process. We start moving some of the stuff up to the cloud, but we're still going to need physical servers in the basement, especially for some of the applications that are running internally. So for those that were on the council, remember the last time we did a server upgrade was 6 years ago. We're getting to the end of life on some of the servers downstairs. The idea was, when we put that system in, was that it was modular. That the servers are separate from the storage, are separate from the network, so that we can upgrade things instead of spending $80,000 to $90,000 every 5 years. We can split those costs up over the course of several years and go through that. We did the storage upgrade. We upgraded some of the storage, which is now starting to come to end of life, which is a quote that came up a couple months ago, renewing that support. Servers are starting to get towards the end of life. So we're gonna, and I believe we have line items in the budget for 2021 and 22-23 to start replacing physical servers in the basement and the storage in the basement, along with upgrading the server software in the basement as well. So as we go through budgets, you'll start to see that in the next 2-3 years, we'll be starting to put money back into that server farm downstairs. But ideally, we won't need as much space and as much software because we're pushing stuff up to the cloud. So that's kind of the plan going forward with that. So any questions on that part of it? That's pretty much all I had to talk about today. Is there any other questions you guys have?
I appreciate you coming in and explaining this to us, because we see it, but we don't understand what we're paying for. So I greatly appreciate you coming in and explaining that. And then also, while you're here, I want to thank you for setting up the Zoom, helping us out. You know, some of us didn't know what we're doing, and you guided us through it very well. And we might be talking to you again, because we might be going back to that. So thank you.
Hopefully quickly, back to Zoom.
Again, if anything comes up, if any of you guys have any questions on this IT stuff, I'm more than happy to come in, explain it, talk about it. I can always, Ray hits me up for any, answers to questions that come up during meetings, but when we get to some of these major components like Office 365 or server upgrades, definitely have to come in and discuss it some more just so you're fully aware. Because some of these numbers are looking dizzying. And that's why I wanted to give you those percentages at the beginning, because overall, the city is doing very well from an IT standpoint, both in technology that we're at and the spending that we're at. Even though $77,000 seems like a lot of money, the percentage based on what you guys are doing here is very low. So I'm not saying we're going to spend more, but I just want to put it in perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
We'll move on to communications, approval, recreational marijuana, Ottawa Innovations.
Good evening. I hope you all can hear me. I'll try to talk loudly enough. Mr. Anderson has a PowerPoint there for me. Will you be advancing the slides? Okay. I'll try to make it clear when it's time to go to a new slide, so you're perfect to start out. Are we good? Okay. My name is Joni Moore. I'm a plant scientist from right here in the Upper Peninsula. I hold multiple degrees in plant sciences. I studied at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor and Michigan Tech in Houghton. I'm also the mother of 3 children and the grandmother of 2. And currently I live in the city of Marquette. I've been asked to deliver this presentation to you this evening to talk about the possibility of selling cannabis in the city of Norway. With that, let's go ahead and get started with our community presentation. Next slide, please. First, I would like to thank everyone for being here this evening. City officials, thank you for taking the time to be here and for letting me speak, as well as community members for taking the time to be here. We've made a great investment in time to produce this presentation to tell you a little bit about what we do. And feel free to interrupt at any time if you have questions. Next slide. I think we've all heard McDonald's and Starbucks. We have a similar geographical and logistical, approach to cannabis in the Upper Peninsula. Currently, we're operating at our former Navy base in Humboldt Township with 10 medical grow licenses and 2 recreational grow licenses. Clearly, we have a strong goal for a strong footprint across the Upper Peninsula. We plan on adult use provisioning centers in Crystal Falls, Ironwood, Portage Township, Marquette, Munising, Sault Ste. Marie, Mackinac, Escanaba, Menominee, and the city of Norway. We also plan on grow facilities in Menominee and Crystal Falls. Why Norway? Because of your location near the Wisconsin border and because of the amazing pride that I see in this community and your community spirit.
Joni, are you looking for a grow license as well? I mean, a growing and retail here?
No, just the retail.
Just the retail?
Yes. If you were interested in the growing side, we could discuss that, but we were just considering the retail store.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next slide. Down on the right-hand corner, you see Higher Love. This is our organizational overview. Higher Love is the name of our retail brand. Higher Love elevates communities and people to higher levels of compassion, higher degrees of commitment, higher quality of products, higher tourism rates, and higher levels of compliance. We'll come back to that one. Ottawa Innovations is the name of our cultivation growing facilities. Ottawa, because of our passion for the natural environment, such as the Ottawa National Forest that covers a large part of the Upper Peninsula. And like the natural environment, our cannabis products are pure. We'll talk more about Ottawa Innovations and Higher Love as a little bit further on in the presentation. ProGrow is our leasing partners. They own real estate and build to suit for us. We lease buildings from them. ProGrow is put together by the owner of Bayland Buildings of Green Bay They are a premium builder. If you've ever been to a Home Depot, a Culver's, or a Family Dollar store, you've likely been in a Bayland building. Next slide. As we all know, retail stores have things like employees, customers, cash, displays, security cameras. Our stores are a lot like that, but we sell a highly regulated product with very special rules, and we have a large demanding customer base that requires specialized customer care. Higher Love is the retail operation that supports Ottawa Innovations, the growing manufacturing operation. As I said, we aren't asking Norway for a growing operation, but if you can imagine a sealed, controlled environment between 20 to 30,000 square feet, basically a whole barn with a staff of trained technicians implementing plant science. Things like watering, pruning, cleaning, transplanting, inspecting, checking for insects, and loving plants every day. I am hands-on and have oversight and influence in all aspects of the operation. Next slide. This is me. I grew up in Michigan. Like many of you, I went to college here. Like many of you, I raised a family here. I love the Upper Peninsula. I love the trails, the forests. I even love the snow. All of my dreams are here in Upper Michigan. If you told me that my dreams and experiences would bring me here to talk to you about cannabis tonight, I would never have believed it. I'm a nurturing grandmother. I like to think I'm a wise mother. I'm emphatic about diet and exercise. I live with a positive spirit, and I believe plants can communicate in their own way. Maybe my greatest attribute is patience, which requires a lot of patience to grow plants. Next slide. This is a little bit about me. I started out studying botany at the University of Michigan, and at the same time, I had a job at University Hospital where I worked with doctors, nurses, and patients, and I learned the benefits and challenges of the healthcare system. I moved to the Upper Peninsula in the early 80s where I studied forestry at Michigan Tech. And I also started a family at that time, and my middle daughter was diagnosed with a brain tumor when she was 11 years old. That really caused me to question, how do we maintain health throughout a lifetime, and how do we recover from a life-threatening illness? These questions were on my mind so much that as my daughter recovered from her illness, and she is doing very well today, I became a personal trainer and a health coach, and this really cemented my passion for health. I actually left that job to go back to Michigan Tech and study forest research, or to work in forest research, but I couldn't forget the piece about health and my questions of what gave us lifelong health. So I also pursued a long-time goal of studying herbalism. Then cannabis came on the forefront, and I realized that this was my perfect combination of both of my passions, health and plants. I wanted to learn how to cultivate cannabis, so I got a job at a local dispensary in Houghton. There was one quite a few years ago, starting in about 2008. I also became a caregiver and had 5 patients and supplied them with a medical cannabis product. So I tell you all of this not because I like to talk about myself, but because I want to show you that cannabis is no longer for dark alleys and back rooms. There are legitimate people involved in this industry, such as myself, people who are respected and scientifically minded, and also people who enjoy offering assistance to people in need. Next slide. So how is a plant scientist good for your community? Plant scientists are analytical, we're cognitive thinkers, we're data managers, information gatherers, statisticians, and most importantly, we work well with others to achieve goals. And how do I apply my science to life in general? I engage with peers, participate in discussions, affiliate with high standards and excellence, take meticulous notes, and make lots of observations. The point is that these are the same tools that allow me to manage my businesses, most of all producing a consistently high-quality plant-based product. Next slide. So whether you agree with cannabis or not, it's here to stay. And I feel like it's time that we all educate ourselves, even if we don't agree with it. Of all the plants that I studied, cannabis has the most amazing ability to work with the human body. As humans, we have an endocannabinoid system, which is mimicked by the cannabinoid system within the cannabis plant. It just so happens that cannabinoids produced by the cannabis plant fit perfectly into our human cannabinoid system. This is a biological system in our bodies that's made of lipid-based neurotransmitters that bind together to cannabinoid receptors throughout our central nervous system and brain. Because of this, cannabis has the greatest ability of all plants that I've studied to potentially treat a long list of symptoms, including acute and chronic pain, inflammation, glaucoma, seizures, anxiety, depression, PTSD, weight loss and weight gain, cancer prevention, tumor suppression, autism, ADD, ADHD, side effects associated with treatments of HIV, hepatitis C, cancer, Crohn's disease, and IBS. Does anyone know somebody with these symptoms? I think we all do. Hopefully they would be able to stop by our Norway location someday and speak with one of our representatives. Next slide. Now we'll talk a little bit about our individual companies. First of all, Ottawa Innovations, the cannabis cultivating manufacturing company. Next slide. I thought you might like to know just a little bit about what we do there, even though we're not suggesting that we have a grow facility here in Norway. What are we going to do? We're going to cultivate, grow, premium, the best, organically sustainable cannabis, replicating the best possible growing conditions through scientific methods. This is what makes Ottawa Innovations different. Lots of folks have different ways to grow, most for the wrong reasons, but that's not what we do. What do we do? It's about our culture. It's all about our customers, our employees, and transparency with our methods. My culture checklist is what we do, how we do it, when we do it, and how our actions impact the community we serve. And to me, to be attentive means to be observant, conscientious, considerate, watchful, mindful, vigilant, earnest, and polite. Okay, next slide. Earlier we talked about ProGrow and Bayland buildings. This rendering represents a standard growing facility for Ottawa Innovations. Notice the attractive exterior and the high security fencing. The building pictured here is about 25,000 square feet, and it's a perpetual garden which would house approximately 7,500 plants at one time. Maximum operating capacity would employ 30 to 60 people, and this is simply a rendering of what one of our standards grow building looks like. Next slide. So in this building, we grow in pots, in soil, like plants are supposed to grow, with water, plant nutrients, high efficiency LED lights, air purification systems to remove smells, and air filters to remove smells and contaminants. Every plant has a state RFID tag and is tracked by the state from seed to sale. Next slide. So now let's talk about the different types of cannabis. Like apples, there are distinctly different types of cannabis. The sativa group is uplifting and energizing, and creative. That would be a good daytime medication for someone. The indica group is relaxing, it induces sleep, and it's better for pain relief, a better nighttime medication. Hybrids are middle of the road. They can be energizing or sedating. They may not make somebody sleepy, but they might help them relax. And then CBD is non-psychoactive. It relieves anxiety, reduces pain, and also reduces seizures, making it a good option for children. Next slide. Higher Love. Now we're going to talk about where we were going to sell Ottawa Innovations flour and our line of branded processed products, including edibles, oils, topicals, and tinctures. Our mission at Ottawa Innovations and Higher Love are similar, but also uniquely different due to the customer-facing and community-facing aspects of the business. We serve others with our exceptional customer care. We listen, we observe, and we provide information to our customers so that they can manage their own health and wellness. We're a trusted source of reliable information and consistent with these tools. We grow exceptional, high-quality cannabis, allowing the highest expression of the plant to help people. We believe that information is power and knowledge is power. So by providing customers with the resources to make good, informed decisions, this empowers them. Next slide. So let's talk quickly about our values. Our stores bring forward our values through the actions of our employees and the quality of our services. We hire people who are happily involved, who are good listeners and hard workers. They're knowledgeable about our products and healthy solutions, as well as the rules and regulations. And we hire them for their integrity, for their honor, for their intrinsic values and their culture. I will be floating to all of our locations continually, ensuring compliance, continuity, and excellence of service. Next slide. So what do you think when you look at these pictures? Fresh, clean, organized, bright, not unlike a healthcare provider's location. Next slide. Higher Love resembles a community's ability to come together for the right reasons. Normally, this wouldn't have been understood just 20 years ago. Whether someone is fighting an opioid addiction, chronic back pain, or simply mild anxiety and stress, our positive messaging and suite of products enables them to find a different path for health and wellness. Next slide. All are welcome in our stores as long as they are old enough, and they will be treated with respect, professional and discreet manner. Next slide. Retail products sold by Higher Love, as grown by Ottawa Innovation, include flour, which is used in pre-rolls for vaporizing and in pipes. Edibles include brownies, gummies, chocolates, and cookies. Concentrates are a high volume of plant material extracted into concentrated oils and waxes. And topicals include lotions, patches, creams, and salves. Next slide. Risk management. Oh my goodness. Very important. Risk management for retail is different than risk management for a growing operation because odor is not really a concern as we use small quantities and they're always stored in sealed airtight containers. Security is extremely important in a retail facility. We have alarm systems, many security cameras, watchful employees, as well as quality relationship with law enforcement. We are discreet, quiet corporate citizens, and our positive corporate image is reflected in our stores. We don't allow loitering. You can't quite see that one, but it's down there at the bottom. We don't want folks hanging out at all. Signage, cameras, law enforcement, and good employee monitoring will always keep people moving along. And minors, we do not promote or sell minors in any way. Our industry is highly regulated. Minors are never allowed in the facility. Next slide. Everything you've seen here today is vertically integrated by need. We're going to grow some plants, employ some people to help us do that, produce some products from those plants, and we're going to sell those products through other employees to many customers. Our high-quality product will be grown and sold here, and you'll know where it comes from. My job, next slide, is to keep all the dogs pulling in the same direction and to arrive at their destination. All customers and employees are treated with dignity and respect. There is no discrimination or harassment. I have an open door policy for any reason, and we are a drug-free workplace. Next slide. There's been a lot of discussion internally in our organization about how we can give back to the community. I don't know what Norway needs, but in time I will. And I promise you that we'll work together to meet those challenges, because Higher Love is also about community. Later on, we'll have a meeting like this one to discuss how we can invest in your community. Next slide. With that in mind, besides paying forward, our business already has inherent benefits to the community. Those include tourism. We attract people to the area. Our products will be sought after in a high degree, as tourists want a consistently high product, and we all know that increased tourism floats all boats. Increased revenue to your area is realized when other local businesses see an increase in traffic, property taxes. We also pay licensing fees up to $5,000 per year in licensing. And there is a 10% state excise tax on every sale, and 10% of that is returned to the community. So if we sell $3 million in a year, your community sees $30,000. We will also be hiring 15 to 20 employees, and these are good paying jobs with benefits. Higher Love, located in Norway, will also give its surrounding residents access to healthy medicines, reducing opioid use and prescriptions that they can't afford. Next slide. Metric. Marijuana enforcement, tracking, regulatory, and compliance. That is the state of Michigan's statewide tracking system. Every plant and every product has a corresponding barcode or an RFID tag. As a data scientist, I love this because it gives us a great snapshot where we can pull together data. We see which folks are coming into our stores, measuring large numbers of customers across a wide range of demographics, purchasing from our large suite of products. Next slide. We support the thin blue line. If we see something, we're going to say something. We help law enforcement get the illegal businesses off their list of concerns. We do everything we can to help them, making their jobs easier to protect us, our families, and other businesses. Next slide. Very similar to my open door policy with employees, I make myself available to anyone in the community that has questions or who desires an audience. Next. Norway may or may not have heard from a potential competitor of mine about moving into your community, but these are the reasons that we are different and a better option. We have plant scientists who are knowledgeable, skilled, and on the cutting edge. We're locally owned, right here in Upper Michigan, born and raised in Michigan and in your community on a regular basis. We are independently funded. I'm the sole owner with no public money. And we are community focused. We are a positive agent of change. Higher love of self and community is what motivates us. We're vertically integrated with no strange products in the neighborhood. And last slide. Depending on where the upcoming conversations go, a timeline could look something like this. Secure a building or build a building. Install equipment, move in, get started providing customers with products a few short months. We're ready when you are. Any questions?
Joni, I noticed that, on your map, you have quite a few towns along the Wisconsin border. Is that a concern with product crossing? Should we have is it a concern in other places? Because I've heard downstate that with the Ohio border and the Indiana border, there's some issues with law enforcement down there. Have you looked into any of that, with Wisconsin being a not a cannabis approved state?
Have we looked into, I understand what you're saying, but what is the question?
Have you heard of any issues on other borders, states where there's not a reciprocal law in place for, cannabis for recreational use?
That is a concern. I don't know what to say about that. I guess that is a job for law enforcement. Yeah, definitely. I expect people only to purchase what they can consume at the time, and wouldn't support people purchasing large amounts taken off the border. The way we look at this is it's for tourism, it's for people that come here, they only purchase what they can consume, and people about the other things that they want to do in the area.
Thank you.
Do you think this will drive out the illegal growers? Because there are a lot of them around here.
Yeah, that is definitely the trend that we've seen in other communities, and other communities have been opting in for that reason, because they opted out, they weren't sure what to do with all of this, so they opted out, and then they saw this increase in the illegal folks, so now they're starting to opt back in, because most folks would prefer having, since we're so highly regulated, our products are tested, they're safe, and most folks would prefer to purchase those products that they know are safe and tested and of a higher quality as well.
And say we give you the okay and you're up and running and your business is going well, and all of a sudden there's a lot of robberies and whatnot, attempted robberies, and the place is a hot spot and our cops are running there all the time. Can we pull the pin on you?
Yes, every year you have the option to change your mind, because you have to renew the license once a year. But on that topic, there are strict regulations about the security cameras that we have. We have to be connected with a security system that is connected to a 24/7 security corporation. And everything has to be locked up in a safe every night.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not sitting out on shelves, visible, it's also not allowed to be visible to the public.
And you'd be strictly retail there?
Yes. Yes, the city controls all of that. The city controls where a retail business is allowed to set up and which licenses you're allowing in your area.
Have you actually bought the land?
No,
No? It's
so we wouldn't do that.
pending if we,
Yeah, we would purchase until we were sure that that's what Norway wanted.
that's all I have.
Any other questions?
I have none.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks
Thank you.
much.
Madam Mayor? I think from staff's perspective or staff's interest, Grant and I talked about this, we're gonna need some direction, because right now we have ordinance 431, which does not allow it. I mean, it's a dead issue unless we change the ordinance, and to change the ordinance, there's a bit of work on our part. So we're gonna need some direction. I don't wanna go off and expend any staff time without knowing that this is something that you guys wanna pursue to investigate whether we change that ordinance. I don't know if Grant, if you have anything you wanna add to that.
Well, it is a new business for town, and I'm sick and tired of hearing for the last 40 years, and you'll probably disagree with me, that Norway is not very friendly to new businesses. Where this comes from, I have no idea.
I like the fact that it's regulated a lot more than our illegal growers around here.
Grant, you want to add something?
Well, as always, the council has considered this a lot already, has had discussions in the past, and considered where to go with this. I think when the council considered this the first time around, I think it made a prudent, the thought process was let's wait and see, we don't need to be a groundbreaking leader on this type of issue. Let's see where things fall and how things are going. Certainly we're at this point where a number of our neighbors throughout the area, even as close as Iron Mountain, have already done allowing things to move forward. Marquette, as more noted, has a number of dispensaries as well as a revision center and different entities. So we're certainly at this point not reinventing the wheel. I've already reviewed a number of ordinances. We have a number in our office that we utilize looking at and tracking. So I think to some degree it's just getting some direction and maybe having further discussion or getting input from you if you feel comfortable or you feel comfortable directing me where to go. There's a lot of, and there's options available that to some degree from the state's perspective may be intriguing. As Councilman McGee mentioned and Mr. Pop mentioned, the council has long, ever since I was able to serve as your attorney, I've heard discussions within the community about some of the grows that we've had, some more legal than others perhaps, but one of the big things has always been air quality. We've had complaints consistently for years about folks growing in their basements and not having proper ventilation, proper cleansing of the odor. Under the regulations, we have a say in working with and setting some of those requirements. And so we get to control the conversation of the ordinances and the parameters of it as a pop note. Additionally, there is some availability for tax revenue. I sometimes wonder how much of it will actually filter down compared to how much it may affect our community with law enforcement, if at all. I think it's becoming more mainstream. But again, I'm not an expert on that issue at all as well. There's issues with our, community. We have a clean hydropower. I think we have one of the lower rates in the entire Upper Peninsula. And so I think a lot of that goes hand in hand with the messaging from individuals that are looking to grow. We have clean hydropower, and I think that goes well with the messaging of trying to respect the earth, respect the plants, and looking ahead to the future. So I think there's some ability there, perhaps for the council to consider, as Mr. McGee referenced, potentially could be a business opportunity if the council is only ultimately, I take my direction entirely from the council. If the council wishes me to have alternatives or have some ordinances provided as samples, I think there's some interest. I've heard a lot of reference. Some of the local attorneys have referenced, and I don't know, and I've just touched on the perimeters of this. I have to dive back into it, but I've heard some folks reference, hey, they wish they had authorized micro business, or I think micro business, where you have almost a small grow along with the retail facility all on site. It's a kind of a combinations of the larger, and look at different licensing levels. There's a lot of ability for you guys to determine which direction you want to go, if at all. You don't want to open this up at all. There's nothing wrong with that either. But if you do choose to do so, we can control the narrative, we can control the regulations. There are some financial benefits that I do think are still somewhat unknown. But there, at least we have the ability to control the narrative and how it works. And as we heard in the presentation, there's application fees. And also something to consider is that within the statute that was passed, there is the ability for local residents to do a petition and get on a ballot to impose their will in any way if they choose to do so. So again, it would be this council's ability to control the narrative if you want to go in that direction.
Johnny, one more question. You said that with Grant bringing that up, that is one of the biggest complaints we get from citizens is the smell. Have you got complaints or anything from the shops at all from smell?
Well, just to be clear, we don't currently have a retail store open. We have retail stores that are almost open. And a retail store has such a small quantity, and it's kept in small amounts. It goes out the door in small containers, and everything is airtight. So it wouldn't be a concern with the retail store, it's more of a concern
Of the growing part.
facility.
Right in the process. Joni, you mentioned you're growing, the grow facilities
Yes.
employ what's your estimate for employment?
Employment for a grow facility, well, we said anywhere between 30 and 60 employees. It depends on where we're at.
Sure.
In harvest or,
And your retail facility was, how many jobs for your retail?
15 to 20. for the
15 to 20.
store.
And you said they were good paying jobs with benefits?
Yeah, I mean, it would start at least $15 an hour with benefits.
Thank you.
Any direction for Mr. Carlson?
Yeah, I think we should look into it. It's here, like you said, the legal's here already. It's, I think we
Our
gotta,
neighboring communities are going to it now.
yeah, I think we gotta just at least look down the path at it a little bit more anyways.
I think it's worth investigation
Yeah.
to see what the process is and
Yeah.
to see where we stand on it.
Yep.
I agree.
I agree with you, but you gotta keep in mind, citywide, it was voted down.
Absolutely. Well, I get you, Lee. We're just saying we're gonna investigate a little bit more.
Just keep that in mind, that's all.
We went through an extensive evaluation under when the medical regulations came out. There's a two-track formula that we have to follow. The first is the legislation, which will be, heavily worked on with Grant and I. But the second is that zoning component. And I think we're in a really good place with the Planning Commission because we did such an exhaustive look at the zoning districts and all of the, the types of operations. So I really don't think from that standpoint, it's going to take us a whole lot, a long time to get up to speed. I think we can catch that pretty quickly. They might groan a little bit just because we spent so much time the last time. But I think we can get through that. So it really will be, I think, on the legislative side that will be probably more difficult or time consuming.
I definitely think it's worth looking into.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can we still have a public hearing on it after we get some more information?
Yeah, I think that's prudent. I think anytime we can have the public, come in, and give their opinions, not just once, but multiple times in the process, I think that's healthy. It's not binding, it's just you open up for the public. So we could set up, multiple, public hearings. If you're willing to come back, you can answer questions. Because that's, I think, the healthiest way to to go through.
Well, to Lee's point, Ray, I think it's important because it did get voted down to this point, right? So we want to hear, but maybe things have changed a little bit now, we don't know, right? So I'd like to get the community to come back in and talk to us and voice what they think they want and what they don't want, right?
What kind of timing do you think for scheduling a public hearing?
Well, if we throw it back to the planning commission and work with them a bit, that would be, I would say, 2 weeks. And they get it to council, I mean, thereafter, probably the mid-August meeting.
And Candy, we can have a public hearing on it, our first public hearing on it, maybe then?
Yeah, we have our first public.
I think that there's, something like this is a little bit of a collaborative, but there's not a right or wrong answer on some of these things. If the council wishes to entertain allowing some of these things to take place and some of the introduction of the businesses to take place, that's step one. Number two is, well, what kind are you comfortable with? Are you okay with a processor? Are you okay with a transport? Are you okay with a distribution? Are you know, and then how many? I thought I saw in Marquette where they just opened up to free market and said, if you want to open a business, go for it. I thought in Marquette Township, if you want to put a limit on, you want to say 2 retail.
Iron Mountain did that, if I'm not mistaken, I think they give 2 licenses, right?
Or if you say you want to put a limit on some things, then there's a competitive process, you have to develop a rubric and go through that process. So there's a little bit of a collaboration that I think would be important and to have that discussion and to determine maybe a choice A, B, and C, move on and then have a final draft perhaps at the next meeting after kind of a public meeting work session type of scenario.
Do you guys got a time restraint?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Do you have a time restraint?
No,
No.
as sooner the better.
Typical business woman, yeah, sooner better.
Yeah.
And I really would encourage the public, please, if you have opinion on this and we open this up to the public and have a public hearing, please come in and let us know how you feel about this. Because if you guys don't let us know how you feel, we don't know. And when we make decisions like this, we are representing the city. So I would really appreciate if you have something to say about it, please come in and participate before we make a decision.
Here, here.
Thank you again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to facility floor cleaning.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is something we do on an annual basis. We get our city hall and other facilities, the carpets and floors waxed and cleaned, carpets shampooed. We put this in the budget, and we did get 2 quotes, and we got the quote from Tri-County Maintenance was the low responsive quote for $3,985.
Do I have any questions? If not, do I have?
Yeah, I got a question. When was the last time this was done, Ray? I don't remember.
Was it last year or the year before?
I think it was 18.
18?
I think we're
Okay,
behind.
just curious.
Yeah, I'll motion that we accept the Tri-County Maintenance bid of not to exceed $3,985 for this cleaning, floor cleaning service.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Mararo?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. Move on to city-owned property purchase request.
Okay, we did receive a request for consideration for selling some city property located up by our 14th Avenue pump station. The request was submitted by Brett Kramer and Jamie Kramer, and I given you maps within the request to show you the geographic location. The city's policy for this type of recommendation or this type of request is it comes to council, the council decides if they would like to entertain or not entertain. So it's not a sale or no sale, it's an entertain and not entertain. Not entertain is a stop right there. If you want us to entertain this, then we have up to 60 days to go through some fact finding with myself, other staff, city attorney, and of course the the petitioners, and we talk about possibly getting an appraisal, talk about the locations, talk about the city's interest, and then we bring it back to council at a future date. I'll entertain any questions you might have. This is a topic, this isn't the first time that we've looked at this area. This is one that we looked at a number of years ago because of issues we had with the TV Hill Road. There is a two-track that runs in behind the homes that are along 14th Avenue. Very simple roadway to put in for us, making it much safer to get up to our TV Hill. But we've in the past have had 3 properties that we had to get easements to go over or do something with because they're on private property. Of course, Mr. Kramer's property is one of them. But recently, one of the 3 properties was purchased by a neighbor, and then the house was taken down, so now we only have 2. And the 2 that we have talked to are much easier to talk to. The 3rd was always a heck no, I'm not even going to talk to you. So it's held us up for a better part of 10 plus years, to do something. So there is some city interest in the area. That would be part of our fact finding though. So we do a complete report and show you all of the options. That would be helpful.
I'll entertain it, just I'd like to see it for you. Another question is that lot buildable? I mean,
No.
so no structure can go there?
No, what it is the main sewer line, or the main water line runs from the pump station, actually right up the center of it almost. And then when you get up past the garage, it turns and it heads off. This right now is an alley easement.
Yeah.
And, we maintain most of the grass that's there now and stuff, but basically it's just for having that easement for good. You know what I mean? We're maintaining it, we have been since we were there. There's always been like a standing, okay, yeah, it's easement, but I would rather just have something where it says it's yours and we're done and we're final with it.
Didn't we just sell a piece of property down the road to the Powers? Or, did we do something last year, 2 years ago?
I'd have to look at the comparables.
That was in front when he was gonna put the garage in front of his house versus behind it. That was the road that, the paved road that runs in front of his house. We had, I think we let go of that road.
We vacated it.
We vacated
Yeah,
that
it's a
road in front of his house.
Different process, but yeah.
I think so.
So
I'll wait to see it.
this doesn't interfere for us to go through there though?
No, that's all part of our discussion is we have to maintain our utility easements for sure. This is a main that goes up to the tank, so it's a critical water line. So, those would have to be all part of the discussion, so.
Right. Yeah, I have no problem moving forward with the, reviewing the requests and working out the details. And as Scott had mentioned, we just want to make sure that the property is appraised correctly and it's fair for obviously the city and Breton and his wife.
When I first looked at this, I only saw it 300, but it was 3 acres. I said, holy cow.
Yeah, Brett wants, he said Brett wants to see that.
Hard to see that point in there. But roughly, 10, 12 years ago, the purchase had been made of the city land up beyond all of Springview Drive, and looking at it dollar-wise, what Mr. Kramer has offered for the .39 acres, there, dollar-wise, he's right on.
And it can't be buildable. It can't.
Wow.
Yeah.
Structure can't be built on.
No.
I mean,
It's not buildable.
No.
it's a custom built, it's not.
Well, we'll pass this on back to staff. We'll go through all of those. I'll work with Mr. Kramer. We'll put together between the city attorney and myself and
Yeah, easement agreements, that type of stuff is
I'll
what
work
we'd have
with
to see,
Mr.
right?
Wiseman as well. So we'll get.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah, make a motion to.
I'll make a motion that council direct staff to proceed with official review of the request.
Second.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Mararo?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Abstain.
Move on to approval, Main Street property agreement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This particular,
Okay, I had one, sorry.
Yeah, tax
Approval, tax reverted property, 306 C Street, sorry about that.
no problem. This particular item, this has been one we've talked about in the past when dealing with property maintenance, dealing with structural issues. This particular property has now come up for tax sale, tax reversion to the county. We've gone through that process as well. We've worked with that program successfully, I might add. And so it's for council consideration to approve this evening. We do have to have it done by the end of the month for the county treasurer. She needs to have our application in by July 31st. Just so everyone's aware too, that as I put in my report, because this is in the DDA district and there is a synergy with the DDA, they've always helped us at city council level. This particular property is in their district and it actually could have some bearing on some things that they're doing in the future as well. So they're going to review it, but they approved actually picking up the financial burdens that go with this. So the total for tax is roughly $5,000, and then probably another $5,000 for demolition. That particular part of it I didn't put in for the approval because that's down the road. We just need to deal with the resolution in hand, 2020-15. But like I said, the DDA, it will be the city's property. Anytime the DDA has worked with property issues, they've always, the city maintains ownership. So we have to make the final approvals at this level. So resolution 20-15 is there for your review and approval.
Where is this?
This is at the
Up
end
by
of C
the
Street,
Thirsty
next to
Whale.
Thirsty Whale.
Up at the Thirsty Whale, okay. And that's part of the DDA? Don't
That is
tell
in
me
the
about
DDA district, yes.
Really, what would happen if we said no, and the county gets it then?
If we said no, then it goes to county tax sale.
And can somebody get it for less than what it's owed?
They can buy it on the first tax sale for what it's owed, and then if it doesn't get purchased, they could go to the second tax sale, and then it goes to pretty much a minimum bid. Full bid. We did hear the potential of somebody that might buy it on the first tax sale.
So instead we're saying that we want to buy it back and but the DDA is going to pay for it?
Yes.
Yes, but we'd have to pay for the demolition and everything.
Right.
Which I kind of think's a good idea. It's been an eyesore there for a while.
And there are a number of options for us on this particular property that, I could bring you up to speed on at some point, but, the city owns property behind it on D Street. D Street is just a two-track that's between C Street and Odell Drive. But we have a whole series of properties there.
Do we really want to own more I guess my question is, do we want to own more property? Especially if you said there's somebody that might be interested in it on the first tax.
But this particular individual looking at just cleaning it up, fixing it a little bit and flipping it, or not flipping it, but renting it.
Okay.
And this property is condemned, so
Okay.
I think we're gonna end up with more problems by not just getting rid of it. That's my 2 cents, but one of the options in the end is to flip it, clean it, make it a sellable lot, and then flip it.
Any other questions? If not, do I have a motion?
I mean, resolution 2020-15 be approved.
Support.
Mr. Mararo?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
No.
Move on to Main Street property agreements.
On the two park projects that the DDA's working on, so because our neighbor properties are right on the boundary, the border, we've gone to those property owners and put together property agreements, protect the city and protect them based on, they got to do maintenance on their building. There's an additional agreement with the Legion, because the Legion actually owns, 8 feet, 7 or 8 feet into that park, and we're going to be building on it, so there's an agreement for us to take ownership of that 7 or 8 feet, and then they would be able to utilize the park. So these agreements are all have been signed by the property owners, and so we just need the approval of the city council to countersign them.
Do you have any questions? If not, I need a motion.
I motion that the Main Street Park Project property agreements with the covenant deed and boundary sharing agreement be approved between the city of Norway, the American Legion, and the boundary sharing agreements be approved between the city of Norway and AJD Spartans Realty and SSMK Management.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Mararo?
Yes.
Move on to approval 2020 local paving project, Mr. Anderson.
Okay, this is a project that, or actually 3 projects that we've talked about during budget hearing, recognizing that we needed to move forward with fixing some more of our local roadways, and we selected Summit Road, Kearney Lane, and Main Street going up the hill as the 3 projects that we wanted to work on this year. 2 of the 3 were designed as crush and shape jobs. That is the Main Street, which the boundary of the project is the viaduct north, taking a corner and going all the way to the intersection of 15th Avenue. Then Kearney Lane, which takes off from where we left off on the previous project on Kearney Lane, carrying that north all the way to Boundary Line Road. Those are 2 crush and shape jobs. And then we also bid separately Summit Road, which was an overlay project, and it'll go from Sweet Lane all the way down to Valley View.
Ray, excuse me, that includes up from Kearney, right, around the water tank?
No, it does not go, no, that goes north, it's north of, just south of Warner Lane, heading north. So what we did on the last project is we started just north of the tank, and we went up around the corner, and we ended up as far as we could go with the budget we had.
So we're not gonna do that one stretch? It's not the plan? From down below, coming off of Kearney, up around the water tank to connect something to Summit?
That's a different roadway.
What is that called?
Keweenaw, I think.
You see that lately?
Yeah, I've seen it.
It's about washed out. I don't know. I mean,
That wasn't the plan. I mean, we.
That wasn't in the
budget hearing,
plan,
it wasn't
but
budget.
we can look at it because we're saving money.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can look at it.
so part of this is that when we bid the project, we got exceptional tonnage price from Baco. Baco is the low bid on both of, there was 2 separate projects. The overlay was one and the crush and shape was the other. Baco got both of those, and we have an exceptionally low tonnage price, which actually we saved $300,000 on $1 million project. So that was one of the options tonight that I wanted to put forward. I did have one option, which is instead of making Summit Road an overlay, which is probably the least desirable but cheapest way that we could fix that, to actually have that as a crush and shape job, that would add another $70,000. So we still have $220,000 roughly of savings. If you want us to also include Keweenaw to go up around the tank, we could do that as an addendum to this on a crush and shape with that pricing. That's what I would recommend, is to utilize that $62.50 that we got on a tonnage price, which is incredibly.
Why wouldn't they want to do that? They're here anyways.
What road works, Curry Road or that?
Yeah, now we got Curry by Roshan's, that is bad too.
That's one.
And I'm getting a lot of complaints on
So-
that one.
So one suggestion though, is that I wouldn't, don't make that specific decision, you don't have to make that specific decision tonight. Let me get some footages. Let me go take, because we might be able to do both. There's not, Keweenaw is not that long of a stretch.
No, it's not.
And the section that we have most difficult over on Curry is not really that long of a stretch. We would probably take out that bad section. We might be able to do both of them, but you gotta let me take and do some footages, as long as I know that the crush and shape is the way to go to really do a decent fix.
Yeah, I like the crush and shape idea for Summit, for additional if you can get them to, obviously honor the price.
Yeah.
For
we gotta
70
make an
grand,
addendum, but
right?
That, we've done that with them before. We did
Yeah.
it a couple of years ago where we added to the project, so.
Ray, could you explain to the public where this $1 million is coming from?
Well, a good portion of it, what, 600,000 is coming from the electric fund. And the rest comes from major and local.
And where does that money come from, Mr. Anderson?
The hydro.
Thank you. The dam, in other words.
Golden Goose.
Yeah, without the dam, we would not be talking
We-
about
We won't be
any
doing
of
these projects.
A sidebar, if you noticed in the report, on Friday I checked, we had 3 machines running. We had a load of 2.8 and we were producing 2.9. So we're still producing more with 3 machines than what our load was.
But now, Ray, the rest of this money, how much of that is grant money? There's some, like going up Main Street.
Well, on this project, there's no grant money component. This is all local. In the spring, Payne and Dolan received the federal aid, which is going to take 15th, it's going to be on 16th Avenue, and it's going to go east from 15th Avenue. So it's where this project stops. They're going to take that, and they're going to go on down Lower Pine Creek Road it's not to the end, it has an ending point.
Right.
And that's 80% grant, and then, well, actually, that is 100% grant, because then the next phase is the 80%, and somehow we were able to work our numbers with them so that they call it state D funds. There's like multiple different funds within it. We were able to get 100% of that project covered under the grant. So that one might actually start this fall, the way the schedules have gone. So we asked Payne and Dolan we gave them that option if they wanted to start this fall, but that one is really scheduled for next spring.
Good.
There is a chance it could go this fall.
So do we have to make a motion on this right now?
Yeah, I'm asking that you make a motion to approve the Baco bid for a price not to exceed $501,555. And then what I'll do is I will come back and we'll have an addendum that you can review based on footages, and I obviously have to get their approval for that anyway, so that
Right.
they would be okay with that.
When are they supposed to start here? Gotta be pretty soon, right?
Pretty soon, yeah, probably within the next 30 days, you'll see them.
Okay,
But I'll get a specific schedule for you.
all right. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I motion that we approve the Baco Construction Company for the 2020 local street improvement project for a price not to exceed $501,501, $501,555.
Support.
What?
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Mararo?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Approval of wastewater department preventative maintenance proposal.
Okay, this one we brought to the last council meeting, and it was denied. And I did ask if there would be a chance for reconsideration, and it was explained to me to come back with an explanation, better explanation as to what this is needed for. So I did ask Bob Trebesi, from supervisor, and Brock Johnson, our operator, to come in and be an assistance in explaining where the preventative maintenance advantages are in this proposal. One thing that was pointed out to me, and I'll just throw it out there and you guys can ask them the specific questions, but if you notice, I pulled out, and I did this, you did not have this in the last proposal, because I don't know why I didn't have this addendum in the preventative maintenance proposal that I printed the last time. But this addendum B shows there's 20 items that are checked, this service checklist, and another 3 on the check valve service checklist. We do one of the 23 items. So with this maintenance proposal, they pick up basically 22 other service check areas. Number of these we can't do. There's electrical checks. There's a number of it that we can't do, and some of the certified technicians, this is what they do. So I'm gonna kind of open up the
So
floor.
what you're saying is most of this we have to hire out anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, you know, I know, I think myself and Scotty supported it last time. I like it, I think, to everybody's point, especially with this more expensive equipment, without hiring somebody, we just can't, I'm not saying the guys don't do a good job internally, but they all get busy, things get, you know, pushed back, and next thing you know, we're replacing a $40,000 pump, you know?
Well, and I think when these companies come in like that, if there is a problem, and when they're
Right.
changing it, because they work on this all the time, is that they're
Yeah.
gonna pick up if something's wrong down there?
Yeah, I mean, and with that $1,500 savings on that impeller part, I mean, we almost got our first year paid for, or at least a good chunk of it, 75% of it, if my math's right. So, anyways, that's my 2 cents on the thing.
Any other questions?
I wanted to know the need for it from the operator and supervisor. Because before, you know, we never really talked about having a maintenance plan too in-depth in the budget. And I wanted to make sure that was in the budget and there was a need for it, basically. So, I mean, how demanding is that need? Basis off this list, it looks pretty demanding now, of course,
Yeah, because we
but,
didn't have that.
yeah, we didn't have that
Yeah,
portion of it.
Exactly.
So if you could just explain a little bit how big that demand or that need is.
Well, let me put it this way, pumps we had previously before these were replaced, they were basically, all you do, we never did any maintenance. You know, we just ran them until they died, and then we take them out of Green Bay, and pay, you know, $2,000 every time to rebuild them, take them back, and then wait till they died. Okay, these are a little bit different animals. These are brand new, and these aren't just grease. A lot more sophisticated, there's a lot more going on, which we don't do. We don't do the maintenance on them. That's all we ever did, is preventive maintenance. But these aren't just grease. These are like quite extensive. I mean, you put the oil in it. First of all, you got to tangle the thing, disassemble everything. You got to dangle it on, pick up, put a stationary strap underneath it, and then you lower down on a chain fall until the thing is suspended in space, you know, right in front of you with that. You're talking about 300-400 pound, you know, pumps. And then you drain the oil, and then you put some oil in it, percent of oil in it, and you take it, and then you take the strap off and you put it back so it's vertical again. Because it has compartments in it that has to fill, and it won't fill when it's horizontal. So you put it, it's pretty extensive. It's not like you just going out and grease. And you're talking about $130,000 investment here. I think it needs to do it more than just oil change. That's all we can do. And what we're doing is we're asking for it. These pumps should last 15 to 20 years if they're inspected properly and, you know, by somebody that knows the pump. And they can, you know, they know what they're looking at. I don't know what they're looking at. I can, you know, disassemble everything and look at it and say, okay, looks okay.
What was the initial cost of that pump, Ray? Of a pump similar in nature to that?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Sounds like a design problem to me.
Brock, you have any extra input or?
The addendum is the most important. If it was just an oil change, obviously we can handle that. But
Yeah.
these guys work with these pumps, we don't know what's more and what's not, we don't have to clear tools, and I mean, they do it from an motor starter, right to the pump. It's a pretty expensive deal. I mean, I don't think sitting there trying to contract a job out, because you know how I feel about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I think there's a lot of value in this.
This addendum B that we did not have last time, definitely, it shows a lot more.
Right. Any other questions, or do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the 3-year preventive maintenance agreement be approved with Flight Water System Solutions for an annual price of $2,300, and the new lift pump impeller also be approved for a price not to exceed $2,600.
Second.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Mararo?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. And I appreciate both of you fellows.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
For coming in tonight.
Thanks a lot.
Giving us an explanation. All right. Anyone wishing to address the council on any item of interest shall do so now at the podium. State your name and address for the record. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. We'll move on to mayor and council comments. Scott?
I have one that was the last thing I had earlier. Mr. Hagan's on rest break.
Yes, he's
How long has he gone for?
it'd be another week and a half,
So how long has he been gone for?
2 weeks,
Why does he have a new laptop
because
on the
he,
road with him? When we would be, he can't use anything with it down there, why don't we have our next guy that runs it?
well, he can use it down there, that's why we had him take it.
So you could have been using the old one and we could have kept the new one here though? The old one you still utilizing?
Well, maybe, but
The old one, that is not bad. Okay, that's all I have. It was just, I didn't know how long he's going for it. I just wanted to explain why he had it with him. You know, instead of the guys that are here, working guys here.
I asked him to take it since we went ahead and got that ready, so he would be in touch. So we talk in the evenings, and he's looking at the system. He can get into SCADA. I mean, you know, after he's done with his drill, he gets online and he actually works for us.
Okay, that's all I have.
Brett?
I have none.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I have a written statement I'd like to read at this time, if I may.
Sure.
Thank you. As you obviously can see, I'm wearing a mask in the council chamber this evening. I strongly consider not attending tonight's meeting because I stated in the previous meeting that I would not wear a mask in the council chamber, but came to the conclusion that I was voted in to serve the public to the best of my abilities, and that must come before any other considerations, no matter how strongly I feel about them. My stance on not wearing a mask in this chamber had and continues to have nothing to do with my stance on public health. As many of you know, my wife Michelle and I own and operate Borderline Specialty Meats here in town. During the first round of COVID-19, we were one of the first businesses in town to voluntarily close to the public and provide curbside and walk-up window service for our customers. We provided hand sanitizer and wipes to all in hopes of helping curb the spread of COVID-19, yet still serve the community with our products. In times of crisis, government tends to overreach, be it in the name of public safety or public security. For example, after 9/11, we had many new rules and laws put in place, some as serious as unlawful government surveillance to as simple as taking your shoes off at the airport. Many great Americans have died to ensure our rights and protect the Constitution and the freedoms and liberties guaranteed within. When I feel these rights are being jeopardized, I stand up against those who would limit them. In this country, no one person, duly elected or not, has the authority to limit our rights for an extended period without the support of the other branches of government. This is called the balance of power. With that said, the Michigan Supreme Court upheld Governor Whitmer's authority regarding this crisis. While I was hopeful that she would work with our state assembly for a better and more united solution to this problem, unfortunately she has not. Individual voices are heard by the Ed McBrooms and Bola Faves, or the elected legislatures of our great state. We have a direct line of communication to these officials. We do not have a direct line to Governor Whitmer. I will follow the governor's mandate as it has been upheld by the Michigan Supreme Court. I would also encourage any of you that feel as strongly as I do about limiting your freedom and liberties to reach out to your elected officials and voice your opinion. This is how a representative republic works. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Very good, Jeff.
Thank you, Lee.
Lee?
Yeah, I see they're making progress out at the compost site, Ray.
Yeah,
Outside of those 3-foot diameter chunks of wood. It looks like they're about halfway done. Do you have any idea what the total cost on that's gonna be? I know we're gonna share it with the township, but
I don't have the estimate.
you don't have that? Okay. And, a couple comments here. Time just goes by too fast. Tomorrow it'll be 51 years since Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. And it kind of seems like yesterday. And on the lighter side, for you that don't know it, today is National Lollipop Day. That's it.
I have no questions or comments. Mr. Anderson?
Just a follow-up from from our last meeting. I've been talking with some of the folks out at the baseball, and so on Wednesday, we have a Parks and Rec meeting, and I do want to have that conversation. They've offered to come in, talk with us. You know, I would like to have a couple of council members available. So I don't know, Lee, do you normally go?
I'm on the committee anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I got a question for Grant. Is that, from a public meeting standpoint, the Parks and Rec meeting is a public meeting, but if we had 3 council members, that would constitute a city council meeting, would it not? So we should try to keep it to 2, or is that an issue?
Not necessarily, I mean, as long as one stays out in the audience and doesn't participate, they can attend and be present and watch. But it's the participation part that then turns it into an appropriate public meeting, and a meeting of the council. So, you know, everybody can be at a restaurant, but as long as they're not interacting and talking about business, that's where all the issues is coming in. So, all participation is, as you've always said, more participation the better. However, more than one council, 2 more council members get together, so get to stay apart and not participate and make decisions.
Is there another way that we could meet with them?
With the committee, with the Parks and Rec committee.
You mean with everybody?
With the baseball league?
Not without, if you have 3, then you have a council meeting.
Could we call them into the, could we call them into
You
the,
call them up here. and-
Can we do that?
During a meeting.
during the meeting?
I mean, they're still gonna come to the Parks and Rec meeting to talk, because I think our Parks and Rec board needs to have a conversation with them as well. I was just saying that, you know, if we wanna have them at our next council meeting, to come in and explain it to the whole council. I just think that we need to get together, you know. Because I've been going back and forth in the middle, and I think we need to, everybody sit down and let's hash it out.
I would appreciate the whole council be there.
So the whole council can't go to that,
You
correct?
may be in the audience.
Yeah,
Oh, in the audience. I see what
As
you're
long as
saying.
you don't participate or talk about city business.
yeah, you can hear it, and then, I suppose, I mean, during public comment, they could talk, couldn't they? I mean, that's, just treat it that way?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
What time is it Wednesday night, Scott?
6:30.
6:30.
And it's gonna be at Strawberry Lake Park. Because we were gonna also do a walkthrough of the project and whatnot, so,
Strawberry Lake Park?
yeah. We're gonna meet at the park, because with the Parks and Rec, what we're doing now is we're gonna meet different locations outside.
Outdoors? No mask?
No mask, you know, we stay
I'm
your
in.
distance, you gotta stay your distance. So, but, that's what we've been doing with them, so.
6:30.
6:30.
Okay.
All right.
And then, we also had a group, and I'm bringing it up in this forum, because, I just wanna make sure that council gets right in the front end, but there's a small group that wants to do some repairs to Knight's Kingdom based on the Little League for the baseball issue, I didn't want to just give them the go-ahead, but it's basically, they're not changing anything, they're doing repairs. So I didn't want to know if council had any issues with that kind of thing. I mean, they're,
No issues with that.
yeah.
Just communication. Just
Yep.
communication.
Communication.
And for facilities to have to be down for a lengthy time, that's for this.
I appreciate all the people who are out at the ball fields and help out, and I appreciate people who come in and fix up our playgrounds and do all that kind of stuff. But I think when it comes to major things, we need a heads up on that. You can't just go out because it's still city-owned and make
Well,
them
it costs-
decisions on your own.
Just for the record, it caught me off guard as well, so there was a lot of not communication. So that's all I had. I wanted to make sure that you guys were all up to speed on it.
Grant,
Nothing, thank you.
Mary, Trish? No? Well, right now, we're gonna make a motion to go into closed session. After closed session, we will just come out and adjourn. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
I make a motion to go into closed session.
Just for the record, for the city manager's evaluation, city manager Anderson, are you asking to go in closed session?
Yeah, yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Grant.
Mr. Meneghini?
Yes.
Mr. Mararo?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Hey, Brock. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Appreciate everything.
You know what? I have no idea what this, stuff.